Henrik, it's all over. Pitcher starting his windup out there again. He's all ready now. Watch it. Here it comes. He fouled the ball. Swung at the ball and missed it. The ball gets away from the catcher, and Henrik goes to first. And now let's see what the umpire is going to decide. He fouled it. He
made a first base boogie as rolled down the line.
Swung on as a drive it out toward the right field corner. Henrik is going back. He can't get it. It's off the wall for a base hit. Here comes the tying run, and here comes the winning run.
Satchel Paige once said, "Ain't no man can avoid being born average, but there ain't no man got to be common." Leroy Satchel Paige was anything but a common man. To many who knew him when he was alive, he was a legend in his own time, and to all of us decades after his death, his myth is just as large as his legend. Paige wasn't just a pitcher, but a walking personification of his time, game, and people. So who was he? And how did he shape the game he held in his hand every day? As far as we know, Paige was born on July 7th, 1906, in Mobile, Alabama. Satchel Paige was the 7th of 12 children in a poverty-stricken African-American family. Paige was born Leroy Robert Paige to John and Lula Paige in the worker section of Mobile. At the time, Mobile was expanding economically, culturally, and socially. The population grew from about 40,000 in 1900 to over 60,000 by 1920. However, many poor blacks and whites were left behind despite its growth. Paige and his family were no exceptions. Paige spent his free time playing a game known as top ball. Top ball was, by any means, a poor man's game. Kids used bottle caps instead of baseballs, and sticks in place of bats. I went around with the back of my shirt torn, a pair of dirty diapers or raggedy pieces of trousers covering me. Shoes, they were someplace else. Paige got the nickname Satchel when he was working at a train station toting bags as a boy. A friend remarked he looked like a walking satchel tree. However, this job would come to an end in 1918. No more than 2 weeks after his 12th birthday, Paige was sentenced to 6 years in an Alabama juvenile reformatory school for theft and truancy. It was at this school that he came under the tutelage of Reverend Moses Davis. Davis taught the young boy how to pitch and worked for hours on end with the other boys at the school on the local team. In 1923, Paige was released and had a right arm full of speed and a mind full of grandeur. He'd rather play baseball than eat. It was always baseball, baseball, said Paige's mother, Lula. I traded 5 years of freedom to learn how to pitch. At least I started my real learning on the mound. They were not wasted years at all. It made a real man out of me, said Paige. Negro League baseball was beginning to take shape in the US during the early 20s. With blacks barred from playing in the major leagues, they opted to form their own separate leagues. Paige signed with a semi-pro team called the Mobile Tigers. It didn't take long for Paige to start cultivating his legend. In one particular game, after several errors led to his team facing a bases-loaded 2-out situation in the bottom of the 9th, Paige had enough and ordered his outfielders to sit down. He struck out the next batter. In 1926, Paige played for the Chattanooga White Sox and was picked up by the Birmingham Black Barons in 1927. Paige was making $450 a month, which would be $7,000 today. Put that over a span of a year, and Paige was making $1.4 million by the time he was old enough to drink. Over the next 2 seasons, Paige went 12-5 and 10-9, with 176 strikeouts in 1929. He was known for his heavy fastball and a collection of pitches with names such as Trouble Ball and Midnight Rider. In 1931, with the Depression gripping the US, several Negro leagues went defunct, and almost no team could fork up the money to afford Paige. However, Paige would find work with several teams in Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. In 1934, Paige went all out, posting a 14-2 win-loss record, only allowing 2.16 runs per game, achieving 144 strikeouts with less than 30 walks. He threw the second no-hitter of his career on July 4th with 17 strikeouts. In the league championship game, he faced the Kansas City Monarchs, one of the best teams in the game. He held out and prevailed in a 2-1 victory with 12 strikeouts. His 1934 season caught the eye of the Monarchs, who signed him in late 1935.
92, 93 miles an hour. But he had that arm that was just like a wet bingo.
When he walked off the field and walked by me and said, "You know what, Nancy, nobody gets Satchel."
That winter, Paige would show his prowess to white major league stars in barnstorming games. Event manager Johnny Burton hired Paige to front a team called the Satchel Paige All-Stars, and on February 7, 1936, in Oakland against a white all-star squad that included a young center fielder named Joe DiMaggio. Satchel held his own for 10 innings against the opposing squad, but lost the game on a wild walk-off win at the hands of DiMaggio. From 1936 to 1938, Satchel Paige's dominance on the mound grew, and he solidified himself as one of baseball's most talented and influential players.
I pitched every day, every day. I pitched in 160-some ball games in a row. I did it for 3 years straight.
160?
3 straight.
And there were legends that you pitched double headers.
Yes.
His performances during this period laid the foundation for the remarkable career that would follow, both in the Negro Leagues and eventually in Major League Baseball. In 1939, during an exhibition game in Des Moines, Iowa, Satchel Paige suffered a significant injury that temporarily derailed his baseball career. While pitching for the Bismarck Churchills, Paige experienced severe arm trouble, injuring his pitching arm, specifically his shoulder. The injury caused immense pain and affected his ability to pitch effectively. As a pitcher who heavily relied on his powerful fastball and various breaking pitches, this injury was a significant setback for Paige. He was known for his durability and longevity as a pitcher, but the injury in 1939 was one of the first major setbacks he faced in his career. Doctors in later years have since speculated that Paige had a partially torn rotator cuff. In 1940, Paige was signed back to the Monarchs and picked up right where he left off. Paige was making over $40,000 a year by this time, double what former opponent and star Joe DiMaggio was making. Paige was not just a pitcher by 1940, but also an attraction, almost like a circus. His drawing power made him very valuable to owners and promoters alike.
Satchel Paige was an unbelievable character, and he knew where to place the ball. He was blessed with one of the best arms ever. I think he only had one sore arm in 87 years.
In December 1941, the United States entered the Second World War. For the first time in a decade, the United States was put into overdrive. Everything and everyone was put into the war effort. But for those like Satchel, who were too old for war, the next option was to play to the crowd and help them forget the worries of war and the labor of creating a war machine. Paige was the tip of the spear for a loaded Kansas City team. The Monarchs would win the league title 4 straight years in a row, from 1939 to 1942. The Monarchs also won the Negro League World Series in 1942. In 1945, the Monarchs had a team that featured a lineup with stars such as Buck O'Neill, Paige, Hilton Smith, and newcomer Jackie Robinson. In 1947, Robinson, now with the Brooklyn Dodgers, made his major league debut. This marked the end of segregation in the majors. Larry Doby soon followed with the Indians the same year. In 1948, Paige entered the next stage of his career. At 42 years old, he signed with the Cleveland Indians.
Satchel Paige, listen.
Paige became the oldest man to debut in the National League or American League. By August, over 200,000 people had come to watch him pitch in just 3 starts. Paige didn't slouch at age 42 and kept the Indians in a pennant race, going 5-1 with a 1.33 ERA. Paige would appear in the World Series, pitching 2/3 of an inning, which was largely uneventful. Nevertheless, the Indians would win the series in 6. Paige would pitch in the majors until 1953. His career numbers are nothing short of remarkable for his age. Paige retired from MLB with a 28-31 record, an ERA of 3.31, 287 strikeouts, and 33 saves in 178 appearances between the 1948 and 1953 seasons. His total career numbers are a 2.70 ERA, and 118 and 80 record, and 1,400 strikeouts. However, we will never know his true numbers. For years, many Negro League officials didn't keep statistical records, and Paige frequently pitched in unrecorded games. In his later life, Leroy Satchel Paige continued to make a significant impact on the world of baseball and beyond. Despite facing many challenges and obstacles throughout his career, Paige's enduring passion for the game and his indomitable spirit allowed him to leave a lasting legacy. Paige continued to pitch for various teams in the major leagues and the minors, displaying his remarkable endurance and love for the game. He became known for his Satchel Paige All-Stars barnstorming tours, where he would assemble a team of talented African-American players and travel around the country, entertaining fans and showcasing the depth of talent within the Negro Leagues. Off the field, Paige faced racial discrimination and limited opportunities that had plagued him throughout his career. Despite these challenges, he remained a positive and resilient figure, using humor and his magnetic personality to win over people from all walks of life. Paige's charisma transcended barriers, and he became a beloved figure in the baseball community and popular culture. In 1971, Paige was finally honored for his contributions to the sport when he became the first Negro League player to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Tragically, on June 8, 1982, Leroy Satchel Paige passed away at the age of 75. His death marked the end of an era and left a void in the hearts of fans and players alike. However, his legacy lives on, and his impact on the game of baseball and the fight for equality remains an enduring testament to the extraordinary life of a truly remarkable man. Satchel Paige's name will forever be etched in the annals of baseball history, celebrated not only for his talent, but also for his unwavering spirit and determination to overcome adversity.